So I will call the meeting to order. This is the October 16th, 2020 meeting of the Shelby Historic Preservation Commission. I'll do roll call. Lacey Bissett.
Here.
Pat Carlisle.
Here.
I'm here. Mary Durkin.
I'm here.
Welcome and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Joe Thompson. Mayor Shag. Joe Geis is here. Jessica, sorry, he's on mute. And Jessica Griffin is not here yet. So we've established a quorum. We have 4 out of 5 members of the commission here. So let's turn to the agenda. Any additions or changes to the order of the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to number 3. Motion to approve the August 21st, 2020 digital and written minutes.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. A second? I guess I need a second because Pat can't second her own minutes, I don't think. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll go to the committee reports now. And Joe, we're going to start with the PowerPoint of the National Register properties. And while you're queuing that up, I will give a little bit of a background on it. We have been talking for a while about discrepancies between the lists and the maps. There have been several maps that have been done over time. And so I thought I'm just going to go down and look through everything and see what's going on. So what I did was I took the original nomination that was sent to the National Register of Historic Places, to the National Park Service. And I disregarded the map at this point because we knew that there were issues with several maps. So I just wanted to look at the properties that were on that list. And they also had photos with that. The whole nomination is about 100 pages long, including photos, including background information on why it was nominated, some things like that. And so what I did out of that, I cut out the actual pictures from the nomination, and I put them into a slideshow that we can just look at those and make sure that we understand that, you know, those are the ones that we need to look at. And those are the ones that are on that list that I gave you, I think a couple months ago. Mary, I'm not sure if I sent that to you. I'll send it to you after the meeting. So this is what I've come up with. So what I wanted to do this month is just, you know, look at the properties, just kind of look at them in detail, look at what we might want to save, you know, if we were to write our design guidelines today, which we are starting to, you know, what are the things that are most important on these structures or even in the structures that, you know, we feel like we really need to protect. And so that's where we're going with this. It's kind of an introduction to the design guidelines, but it's also to make sure that we understand, you know, which properties are the historic properties. So, and I guess, Joe, you'll need to advance the slides for me.
Are you ready for the next slide?
Yeah,
Okay.
slide 2. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So this was the map that actually went with the nomination, and each of the properties was numbered, and it was not a number, it was not a street address, it was just a random number, you know, they just went 1, 2, 3 down the street. So this, you know, I think when all is said and done, we need to redo the map, and we need to make it an accurate map according to, you know, what's there today, because obviously they're buildings that have been demolished. They're not, you know, they're not there anymore. So we need to probably have an up-to-date map. And we probably, if we haven't done it, probably need to contact the National Park Service and let them know which buildings have been demolished and are no longer part of the contributing structures to the building, so, or to the Shelby Center Historic District. Okay, next slide. Okay, we know this is basically we're going to go from the southeast side of the district, just straight down the street, and then we'll turn, and then we'll go from the northwest side back down to the south northeast side. So, of course, the fire station is one of the first ones. If you see any, things that you'd like to say, oh yeah, we need to keep that. Interesting thing about this picture, this is all from 1982, and both of the bays on the right side were of equal size, and later on, one of the bays was cut higher, but all the bays were of the same size at one point.
That's when they got a new ladder truck
Mhm.
and they needed a higher garage door for it.
Yeah. So that's kind of a point too, that, a lot of these buildings were altered even after they were placed on the National Register. And there was, no mechanism in place to be able to discuss it or, give a certificate of appropriateness or anything like that. So we're going to find this throughout these photos that things like that have been done. Okay, next slide. Of course, this is a Garrett building. We all probably know it as Napoli's Pizza. What a beautiful building. I had kind of forgotten, how nice it was, but I also had forgotten how close it is to the Black Fork River. The Black Fork is just to the left in this picture where the person's walking by. That's the bridge right there. That building's demolished. Knights of Pythias, I think we're up on the 3rd floor. Next slide.
Another interesting thing, Tom Clayball has put a really neat story about that building on the museum's website. There's a lot of history to that building.
Mhm. Thank you.
Come on.
This is another building that's demolished. This is basic, and I'm explaining a lot of this for Lacey because she doesn't have the history of the city. So this is actually where the Black Fork Commons is now. If the 2 pillars that are there, that's about where the municipal building was. That's side street there is, it's been called various names through the times. I think Central Avenue, Black Fork Street is, I think is what it's called now. So, okay, next slide. This is was called Light Insurance at the time. This is the corner building on the corner of Black Fork and Main Street. I understand that the previous owner would like to make some modifications to it, so we should expect a certificate of appropriateness application from him hopefully soon. This building also is the one that has the side of it's been painted white as maintenance precaution. He painted it the same color as it was, so when Joe and I talked about it, we didn't think we really needed a certificate of appropriateness for it because it was basically maintenance and painting the same color. So, okay, next slide. This is a coffee shop, what was called the coffee shop. Now, latest was Connie's Place, and then Stevenson's Drugstore is also part of that. So, and one of the things that I would look, if we were looking at design guidelines, is the rounded window in the front. I think is something that was, really unique to that building, unique to, when everyone drove by, they knew that's the coffee shop. And so I think if we were going to think about design guidelines, that might be one of them, is that rounded storefront, trying to maintain that aspect of it. Any other comments on that one? Okay. Next one. This was called the Gross Cup Building. I'm not sure that there's anything in there right now. But another, another unique one. It's fairly old. I think that's the first. The other two buildings I think are wood, and I think this one was a brick facade, if I remember. I could be wrong. Okay, next one.
It's hard to believe that building used to look like that.
Yes. And this would be another thing if we were discussing design guidelines, that we discuss these bay windows. A lot of the buildings in town have bay windows like this. Some have been covered over, some have been removed. These 4 beautiful, beautiful windows have been removed, and they stuccoed, I guess it's stuccoed on, or plastered or whatever, the entire second floor of that building. And of all of these images, this one upsets me the most. I mean, it makes me sick to my stomach that those windows are gone. I don't know if they could ever be replaced if someone decided to restore the building to what it looked like, but what a shame. And then, and again, this is from 1982. And so all of this destruction, I'm going to call it destruction, that's what it is. You know, this destruction was done after 1982 when we had this on the National Register and there were guidelines in place. So I'm glad that, that we're here now and that we can help protect some of this. Okay, next slide. This is Huffman Shoes, and most recently was Mike Ootz's Taekwondo place. This is one that it's been an issue. Is it on the register? Is it not on the register? And what I found, from all this documentation is it is indeed on the register. I don't know if the new owners know that yet, but we need to make sure that they know that. I've heard that there have been people in there doing some restoration work, so so we should probably follow up on this building. Okay. This is Fox Den. I'm not sure what's in there now, if anything. But again, you can see the bay windows up near the top. This one does have original windows, which is, I think, another thing that we should look at is, all the original windows in the buildings, because that's what makes the, the whole streetscape. That's, that's what makes it historic, is to have those windows still there. Okay.
Chairman, does this mean that Transdens, which is right next door to it, is not on the register?
Right. It is not on the register.
Okay, I would like for you to comment when we pass a building that is not, that you comment to that. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's okay.
Yeah, I don't have pictures of, so the other ones that we passed by were the Castamba,
Yeah.
Which was not unearthed at that point. It was, it was covered over and part of the Ben Franklin at the time, which is now the thrift store, and that one also is not on the National Register. So right. Thank you.
That one, but I was surprised that Transden was not.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Thank you for going over all this.
It's mentioned in there as a as a building that was not one of the ones. I mean, it was considered.
Was the word they used intrusion?
Intrusion, right.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Okay, this is Duff Shoes and I think Wise Jewelers too. I don't know why. Some of them they only named like one of the businesses, but it was, actually if you look at the second floor, it's all one building, just 2 storefronts to it. There were a couple like that I think they intended for the whole building, but they just didn't, they just didn't include the name Wise Jewelers. So, okay. This one was the original First National Bank. It was annexed onto the other building to the right, which is the First National Bank. This one, I think the second floor, I'm so glad that they kept all of the detail in the second floor. I'm sure those aren't original windows, especially on the right. But I think that's one of the most unique, I don't know what you call the top part of cornice maybe, or the top part of it, I think is one of the most unique ones in town. When you're driving down the street, you can see it. It's very visual. So, you know, I think it's part of the First National Bank property now. So I don't know what the plans are for that building. Someone new bought that, might have been a year ago now, but there's a new owner from what we knew about a year ago. Okay. And then this building too, it kind of surprises me that that it was placed on the National Register because it was altered quite a bit. I will have to get some original pictures from Tom so that we can see what it actually looked like at the time. But you know, those second and third floor windows are obviously not original. They're more modern, and you know, on the whole first floor, they basically put a sheath, a protective covering over it. So I'm kind of surprised that it was included, but maybe for the historical value, I think maybe that was part of it too.
So Chairman, the two buildings that are side by side here, the one that is the original First National Bank building where they kept the second floor as it was, and then this one that's on the corner, do they both have the same address? They're both considered 60 West Main?
Did the other one say 60?
I thought so. Maybe I read it wrong.
I think they do now because they were part of the same building. I mean, part of the same business. Yeah. On
Yeah,
the
they both
list.
labeled 60.
Yeah.
And then the one that was Duff Shoes and West Jewelers, it's labeled 50. So there could have been, this one could have been, see if this building is 50,
Mm-hmm.
then right next door to it could have been this one, the one that was the original bank building,
Mm-hmm.
could have been, if that's 50, this could have been 54 or 52 through 54, and then 58 through 60. So I'm just curious, what were those addresses back then? Is that what they had in their
Look
notes?
them up right now, but I think you're right, Pat. They just used those places, but once it was all bank, there was no need for those addresses, but that.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
So every 60 feet, there's a new address number.
right.
Yeah, look, because them new stores were in there. There were 56 and 54, so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops.
Yep. Nope. That was it.
Wow.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
painted those windows for Halloween one year.
Did you really?
Seltzer Electric, yeah.
I probably painted it one year too. I seem to remember painting. No, I think it was on the other side of the street. But
Yeah.
Oh.
That my dad was part owner in that building eventually when it sold.
Yeah.
This is a very sad part of history too, because and then you got Suiters, and I had forgotten there were actually two buildings within that parking lot. It's now a parking lot. The bank bought both of those properties and they turned it into a parking lot, and it's hard. That one's hard to talk about because it was, you know, Joe Seltzer built that building as well as some other buildings on Main Street way back when. There's the block up at the top that says JAS, that's Joe Seltzer. And Pat Seltzer Mooring, about a couple years ago when she came down, she actually donated that to the Shelby Museum. So we have it, that's all we have. But this is on South Gamble, so it's right around the corner it's on the side of the First National Bank. So,
And if you notice, even in 82, the top floor windows had been bricked in.
yeah,
Yeah, even in 82, that was already happening.
yeah.
I love the trash can. I want the old trash can. Trash can. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Moving on. I'll mute myself. So
no, that's okay. Okay, Joe. This one's a little bit hard to see, but it's the, it was on the nominations called Mickey Building. We all know it as Dick's Furniture Building. Randy Sampsell has that now, and he's done a fantastic job of you know, kind of cleaning it out, bringing it back down to the original. And the floors are beautiful. There's some pillars in there now that were uncovered that probably no one had known about for years, but there were supports for the first and second floor that go halfway down the building. When the Preservation Ohio group, that this is one of the buildings that I took them to see what's being done, because I think he would like to sell it still. And they were amazed that the original windows were still in the upper floor. And, you know, I think that's one thing definitely when, you know, windows throughout town that we're talking about, they can be saved. They don't have to be replaced. And I hope that this is one of those buildings where they can restore those windows.
Notice the diagonal crosswalk here.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Cool. These two buildings are fun just to look at the top portion of the buildings too. There's so much unique work to some of these buildings. It's a lot of fun to look at them. This was called Fashion Shop at the time. I think it's a music store now. Was it Melodies Musics or something like that? Anyway, really pretty building. And then the next
I
one.
think Melody sold this building recently. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know
And next door.
this building, yeah, the Phelan building was just sold, and I see that they have a for rent sign in there already. So, yeah, they're
It's
kind of,
actually, that building's actually listed for sale again. I think they want 55,000 for it, maybe, or 59. I can't remember. But if anyone wants to buy.
Welcome, Jessica.
hi, Jessica.
Are you saying 66 is for sale or 68 is for sale?
I think it's 68.
68 is for sale. So the dance studio is still at 66?
Yes.
Next door? This is still the dance
Yes.
studio? Because I thought I saw a transfer of property in the newspaper that said she sold this.
She sold the building beside it.
Oh, she sold the 68.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And
so
now
she-
it's for sale again, is what you're saying.
okay. Well, I would call those buildings the Two Sisters buildings. I just think they're,
They're identical.
yeah.
They're
I just
identical,
think
yeah.
they're pretty. And again, see, those are original windows on the second floor,
Mhm.
and you know, I think definitely worth saving, as well as you know, the top part of the building.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this was called True Value. I guess they were considering that whole building. There's two storefronts there. Right now it's Suiters Home Furnishings. The very top, it says S&S. That means Seltzer and Steel. So this is one of the older original buildings in town, Joe Seltzer, and I think the man's name was John Steele. Anyway, it was a steel. It's always been a hardware store up until Suiters, I think. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Again, you know, all the original windows upstairs still.
It's-
Joe Thompson is now in the meeting.
Good. Thank you, Joe. Hi.
Hi, Joe. Welcome
Morning.
aboard.
We're about halfway through our tour of the historic district. So we're looking at original, the 1982 nominations list to make sure that we understand which buildings are on the National Register. So now this is crossing the alley between what's now Suiters, and this building is actually Ohio I now. Again, there's those beautiful bay windows,
Mhm.
and that, you know, probably should be protected. And then, you know, we've got I love these old cars in here too. It's fun to look at. Okay, and the next, oh, okay, now we're crossing the street. So there's a couple of other buildings that we'll consider when we look at the state inventory. I just wrote the names of the buildings on that one. I don't have photos of them yet, but I'll go downtown one day and get those. But so now we're crossing the street. KFC, it would be just to the left of this building. So this is actually Giannino's now, Giannino's Pizza. Again, look at these wonderful bay windows. I mean, this is, if you think about this historically, these windows were like a way for you to look out and see what's going on up and down the street, you know, without having to hang your head out the window or press your head against the window. It was a way for people to, you know, keep up with what's going on. So, and extra light. I think the windows on the side were probably used, you know, for extra light. I don't remember if those windows are still there or not on the side, but there's a lot of buildings that have those bay windows in them. So.
Are most of these second floors occupied?
You know, that's one thing Jessica and I've been talking about, is to see if we can get an inventory done of apartments upstairs, because, you know, that's a lot of people talk about walkable communities, and, you know, having businesses, having storefronts downstairs that would support people that are in apartments upstairs, you know, that would be walkable. And so that's what we're looking at. Some do,
I
some
wonder-
don't.
Yeah, and I wonder if Chief Thompson would have insight into that, or the fire department, because if they're residential, I think they have to inspect them.
Okay.
So he might be a good resource to find out.
Okay, that might be easier than I wasn't sure how we would find out. So, okay, good. Okay, then the next building over was Windbigler's office before they moved across the street, evidently. And help me, I think that's Alta Florist now, right? I think. And then go ahead to the next one. And then Whistler's, I think, is now Local Roots, if I'm right. And then the building next to it, which is the Sweet Dreams Bakery, it doesn't look like that's number 67, and it doesn't look like it's on the register, but I think maybe they were considering both of them together again, because you can see the buildings are, you know, looks like one of those two storefront buildings. So that's one of those things that we need to check on, and whether that's actually a contributing structure to the historic district. Because the next one then goes to the Brickley Hotel. So I'm not sure on that. Again,
I'm wondering if they're considered part of that.
Say again.
Because I said I wonder if the bakery is part of that.
Oh, part of the Brickley? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
think
I
if we
would bet
check
you
the
it-
deed, it is. If we check the deed that Roths have for the Brickley, you'll find that building where Sweet Dreams is on that deed. That's one of the ways where we can check deeds and find out exactly what size a building was or what was included in a particular building. Because I believe Sweet Dreams rents their space from Roth.
Oh, okay.
I think so. But if you look at the building, the Whistler building and Sweet Dreams, the style looks similar. So it's very, yeah, it's difficult.
Okay,
Yeah, but I think that Sweet Dreams pays rent to Roth, and all of a sudden I can't think of his first name. I see his face.
Very.
Jerry Lynette. See, I got the Lynette. Yeah, Jerry. Right. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive. But I think that's where that confusion is about the Sweet Dreams piece.
okay. Now you look, oh, sorry, back on Legends there real quick.
Yeah.
So this is one of those, I mean, this was already done this way when evidently in 1982, but
Mhm.
you look at the second floor windows and these are obviously altered and
Yes.
they're starting to, decay some of the wood on there.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, like plywood almost, and it's peeling off. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I thought maybe the original windows were there, but no, in 1982 it was basically
No, they'd
like
already been replaced. Yeah.
yeah.
That was, though, the 80s was when people started getting very concerned about utility bills and heating bills. And they started to make large historic windows smaller in an attempt to save heat and save energy. That was when it was beginning to happen.
Mhm.
And also, it was cheaper to put in a smaller window than it was to put in the full-size window.
Well, and that was Windbigler's property for a long time.
Yeah,
And there were units, people living up there.
there still are.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's one of the places where I can say definitely we have
Yeah.
residential upstairs. Definitely people currently occupying it.
Okay. So does anybody remember this building?
I do.
Yeah. I mean, I vaguely remember it. So this is actually the back of the, what everybody's calling the blue building right now, the Shaw building. This was what was up against the back of the building. I mean, I think that's probably why the brick has decayed so much along the back there. But this was called the Dutch Inn, and of course it's gone now. So. I think if no one has updated the National Register, I think we probably need to do that.
When they ripped this building down, that's when the damage occurred to the quote blue building. And the way they repaired it was just stucco it. They damaged a lot of those bricks when this one came down because they had a shared wall.
Okay. Of course, this is what's called the Shaw building, but we all unaffectionately call it the blue building. This is on the corner of Main and Gamble, to give you some reference, Lacey.
There's Joe walking right there.
Yep, here we go. This is called the K building. I don't know why it was, I'd love to know a little bit of the history of that.
That's the Kingsborough Drug Store.
Ah, makes sense. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. Of course, we knew this is Hancock Agency. That was just sold to Lance Gutschall with Weber's Bar. And he is intending to break through. I've already talked to him about a certificate of appropriateness for that. He wants to break through and enlarge the bar. And the whole second floor he is actually using for his apartment. So I think he said something like when he has it finished, it'll be something like 2,500 square feet.
Mhm.
Be a very nice downtown apartment for him.
Mhm.
Okay, next one. And of course, Weber's Bar. I hadn't been in there in quite a while. And when I took the Preservation Ohio people through there, we were just blown away. I mean, it's like walking into history. I mean, all of the wood is still there and it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous building.
Volunteer to go down there and take a picture and go inside. I'll I'll take care of that for you.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yep. And we don't have a picture of the Shelby Sporting Goods, but it's on the other side of the alley from Weber's. And it's still there, but it's part of Adams, Albert and Curry, part of that building. And that building, Adams, Albert and Curry is an intrusion, so it's not part of it. All right. And Shelby Telephone Company, I don't have a picture of that. That's Depler in Poland, who I think just closed down too. So I'm not sure what will be going on with that building. But
That will likely fail within the next, I don't know, 6 months to a year.
mhm. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad you're on now. And then Daily Glow. I think this is another one of those just, beautiful buildings. It's sometimes you just have to look at the upper floors to, kind of think about what it did look like even further back than the 1980s. So, and then to the left is another intrusion, Shelby City Hall. So, okay. And then we have Citizens Bank, which is now the Vault. So we all know that one. You see the drugstore next to it. That's now that open space that he uses. Outdoor patio type space. That building's gone, and that was never part of the. No, it actually wasn't gone at the point that this was. These pictures were taken, but it evidently was an intrusion, I guess. Okay.
Oops. That's my question. Can we go back one, please, Joe?
Sure.
There's this, and this was Strubles, which was a horrible, horrible, horrible story about getting that torn down. But what's this building over on the other side as we're moving to the left? Is that where the
Card shop.
shop is now? That is a
Baseball.
yeah. That's an intrusion.
Evidently, yeah.
Yeah, because it's next to what is now the Shelby Globe.
Mhm.
So that building right between the Shelby Globe and up to this one, which is, from the Shelby Globe up to where the Vault is now, all of those were intrusions in 82.
Evidently, yeah. They're not on the list.
They're not on the list. Okay. All right. I just am trying to straighten it out in my head.
Yep.
Oh, I'm so sorry that building's gone.
I know. Yeah, this is another really sad one. I mean, what a unique building. I don't even know what what period, what you would call it, but more modern, I guess. But yeah, it's gone.
What was that?
That was Shelby City Hall. Well, it started out as Shelby Insurance.
Mhm.
So we moved out of there in 07.
Okay. This is another building that's gone. It was called the Browning Building. There were several storefronts in there. I'm sure people remember what was in there. That is where, just to the right of that is,
There right now.
yeah, the Black Fork is just to the right, and in the background is a Masonic temple. It's a larger building. It goes far back a ways. I didn't realize it was that big. Okay, next one. This one's also demolished. There was no picture in the original, but it's around the corner. I think most of that land now is where the bar has an outdoor seating area, that whole area there. Okay. And then, of course, the Masonic Temple. Look at all of these windows. And if I had today's picture on here, you would see how much of it's covered up. They basically took the entire front and possibly the side of the building and re-bricked it. So again, you
That's
know,
another building interest in. They likely would be interested in selling it.
really,
Yeah, and I am aware that this wall, I don't know, the wall that is to the west, where you can see the fire escape and all that, the wall on the west here, and especially even clear down to its, where it is all the way through its basement. This wall is moving. And it is starting to show some serious foundational cracking. I'm in this building frequently because the back room of Hope is located on that first floor. And we have some issues. We notice issues on a rather daily basis.
that's a shame. Okay, so now we'll go through the state inventory, and I don't have photos yet. That's kind of on my to-do list for maybe next month. Maybe Lacey, maybe you might want to go with me and we can look at these buildings. These are buildings, so all the buildings that were before, I think most of them are on the state inventory. And then these are additional buildings that are on the state inventory too. So we've got the Dowd's house on South Gamble. We've got the Marvin, and refresh my mind, is it a Bricker that lives there now?
Dale
Okay,
Bricker, yeah.
Yeah, Brickers.
okay. And then the Marvin house, that's the one that's up against the railroad tracks on Gamble, the yellow, yellow wood house. That is rented, that's being rented out. Henry Sheets' house on Marvin Avenue, that's the one that sets back from the road, has all the, you know, the beautiful porticos on the side and everything. That was actually for sale, and I told someone from Richland Preservation Action Groups, they're actually doing a story. They posted something on the Shelby Museum group, Facebook group, and got a lot of feedback on that one. So that was a lot of fun to look at that one. That one is portioned out into apartments, evidently. So Arnold's house on 90 West Main, I tell you what's there now is, it's that A-frame house. I think it might have been like Buckeye Bakery or something like that. I don't think that's on the state inventory. Was there a house there before?
Yes.
Okay. So then that's another one that we probably, the ones that I put in blue are the ones that I think we're probably going to have to notify the state that they're no longer there.
In a demo, yeah.
Yeah. So then we've also got the First United Methodist Church on Gamble and the First United Presbyterian Church on Gamble. And the post office is also on the state inventory. Okay, next slide. And then pretty much most of the south part of East Main Street is on there. So what they call the Hotel, which is McGowan and McGowan, Domino's Pizza, Main Street Limited, Shelby Eagles, Ivory Bean Coffee House, Shelby Furniture, DeVito's, which is now Lynn Cottle, and City Loan and Savings, which is now law firm, and then of course the Memorial Park where the bandstand is. Okay, and
When you looked on that state, when you looked on that state inventory and you were looking at the bandstand at Memorial Park, does it mention the bandstand on the state inventory? Just the park?
yeah,
Just the park?
yeah.
Okay. I'm writing as fast as I can, so I really need for somebody to send me this PowerPoint because I can't keep up now when you're going this fast. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to everybody.
Sure. Is the DeVito studio is something different now too, isn't it?
Yeah, Lynn Cottle photography. There was a photography studio in there again, which is
Yeah, but
really
it's
cool.
something different now.
Yeah,
And where the city loan is where is the tattoo place right now? Which one of these is tattoo? Is that 34?
I think that's between DeVito and,
Probably 36.
yeah,
Probably 36.
Yep.
So the 36 is not, the city loan is the 34 was Schragley's, right?
It was combined in one building and they.
Oh, okay, all right. So I love the combined building thing. It just makes it really clear to me.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, move on.
well, and I will have to say that I pulled this from our historic preservation plan that the
Right.
consultant pulled from the state inventory. So we
Right,
do need to go back and double check this against that too.
yeah,
So-
yeah. We need to go to the state inventory physically, go there and double check it against what our preservation plan says.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
okay. And then last slide. Coney Island Restaurant, I think that's where the city hall was. I mean, it's just, I don't know if any remnants of it are there or if they just rebuilt that part. I don't really know what happened with the city hall there.
Well, the Coney Island, that section of our building is where like the mayor's office is. And
Okay,
all his offices all the way down there, through
so
there.
it kind of slants up, the roof slants up.
The what now?
The roof slants up on that part? That's where it was?
No, it's like if you come in where the mayor's office is,
Mhm.
that's where the Coney Island part was. It was a big, long, narrow thing all the way down through, like
Okay,
all the way to our back door.
okay. All right. And then West Main Street, PG's Tavern, that's Croca and Associates now.
They're not there anymore.
Croca isn't, yeah, but the building's there, right? Yeah. So that's on the state inventory, which we didn't realize until the other day either. Someone asked about it. And then Joe and I think that this Phillips Companies on Broadway Street is actually out of town. That's why it's out of the city limits. That's why it was a 4-digit
No, that-
address to it.
it was inside the city. It was annexed in probably 2005 or 6,
Okay,
but it burned. So
okay,
they demolished the house.
okay. And then,
It's on Broadway on the east side, going almost out to London West.
okay. And then, I don't know, there were 2 different numbers, 9 Mohican Street, 8 Mohican Street, but anyway, all that's a vacant lot there now, so those will need to go back to the state inventory and let them know that that they're no longer there, so any questions on any of these properties? So basically what I've shown you is the properties that are contributing structures to the National Register for the Shelby Center Historic District, and then additional buildings that are on the state inventory. Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you for going through that. I know that was a lengthy thing, but so that kind of shows us the inventory mailing list. I sent you it's on a Google spreadsheet, and I've sent you the link to that. We really need to get that updated with all the contact information so that, we have a way of contacting these property owners. So I kind of had the thought of maybe breaking down different blocks of buildings, especially on Main Street, and each of us take kind of ownership, kind of adopt a block, maybe something like that. What do you think about that? And then you'd only have like maybe 5 or 6 buildings where you'd have to get the property owners and the contact information.
A
Does that sound-
question about that. So I just, I haven't had a ton of time to look at it, but when I did, it occurred to me, can we just use the recorder's office information for the county for property transfer information for the current owner, or how we found that that's somehow inaccurate? because it'll give a name and an address, and then, you can also do a search for a phone number.
Yeah, I mean, if we could find phone number, I think what we're looking for is phone numbers and email addresses so that we can contact them other than by mail.
Okay. Yeah, I
That's a
think the
start.
phone number a little more tricky, but for one, I found a name and an address, and based on that, just using it's like fast people finder search. So it's not 100% like legit, but it gathers information from the web, and it had a phone number and the address matched. It's a guy in Colorado. So I just wanted to make sure that that was an okay way to go about that, because it seemed pretty easy to find for the one I looked at.
Now, are you talking about county recorder office or the county the tax office? Who's paying the taxes on the property?
I get the two confused a lot of the time. Let me pull it up here. It's actually the auditor. Sorry, it's the
Yeah,
auditor.
the auditor, right, that's your tax, yeah. The recorder's office actually has the deeds. That's where the deeds are registered, is in the recorder's office.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
auditor's office are the persons who is paying the property tax on it, who's responsible for the property tax. Yeah.
Yeah. And but it does have all the owner information that I'm assuming is accurate.
Yeah, what we have currently is that kind of information. And Joe Thompson actually compiled a list clear back in 2016, and then it does need to be updated. But most of what we have now, Joe Thompson and Tom Clayball did that by going through the property tax records and compiled as much of a list as they could. They were working on that back in 2016. But that was the source, was the property tax, the auditor's office, yes.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be updated too, because I know that there's been sales of quite a few properties actually.
Yeah, I try to read the property transfers that are placed in the newspaper on a regular basis to spot addresses that we know to be historic addresses. I try to catch it, but I don't always catch them all.
Okay, so how do we want to approach this? Because we need to get an up-to-date list. Do you each want to take like a block of,
Yep,
5?
I'll take a block.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I want to,
We can do it that way. We can say from this address to this address, go search these addresses on the auditor's site and see what you find.
yeah.
We can do that.
You can assign you. I'm happy to help. I do have to go, so sorry,
Okay.
but
Do you have anything to
Nice.
tell us before you leave?
I don't think so. One of the buildings that you talked about does have a new owner. I think it's 86. So we will make sure they know they're on the state registry. The other Utz's building, about that one before, same thing. We didn't know it was on the registry, but now we do. That owner, I'm not sure. I think he would sell too, but I'll make sure. I need to get in contact with him anyway. So I will try and pass that along as well. So, and then just send me a list and I'll work on it.
When you talk to some of these owners, if you could maybe get phone numbers and email addresses from, and I think you have gotten some, but.
Yeah, I think I put all the ones that I have in the spreadsheet. So any that, phone numbers and emails I have are in there.
Okay.
Just for clarification, the buildings that are under the control of the Shelby Historic Preservation Commission are just the ones that are in the Shelby Center Historic District. Is that correct?
No, it would be all of them, anything that's on. So it would also be the St. Mary's Church, the Marvin Memorial Library has to come to us for certificates.
So it's all of them, okay.
State, anybody on the state inventory now and anybody on the local inventory,
Okay.
all of it. So there's, I don't know how, we'd have to count the properties up. I'm not even sure right now.
It's not just the district.
Right.
It's a building listed on any historic list.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so if we, I would be willing to take from Dick's Furniture down to Ohio I, and and find those. I think there's 5 or 6 buildings there. Anybody willing to take the south part of that section in West Main?
So you're saying from Legends up to the pizza place?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take that section.
okay.
I don't care, just tell me what to do.
Okay.
Put me down for whatever as well.
The other 2 areas are not, well, I'll include 3 areas because we probably need to get the information on East Main Street too, that's on the state inventory, so that we have contacts for them. And the reason it's important to get all this done is that at some point we need to get everyone on the National Register and the state inventory on our local inventory. That's part of it. So we need to move forward on that fairly quickly so that, so that we're able to do the certificates of appropriateness correctly, basically. So Pat Legend. So we've got the south side of Main Street, which would be from that, it's Copperfast now up to the old First National Bank. It looks like a lot, but it's not. There's some intrusions in there, and there's some areas that are, some buildings that are together. So it's not that bad. So I've got that yet, and then the north side of that same area would be from the Shaw building, the blue building, down to the vault.
I can do that, from the blue building to the vault.
Yeah.
So what's up is the part that is from Copperfast
Mhm.
to the First National Bank is what's left, right?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Lacey, do you want to try that?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have the building numbers starting in by chance?
Yeah, I can get them for you.
Okay.
And then, Joe, do you want to work on the ones on East Main Street?
I'm quarantined.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll save those though. Those are the state on the state inventory, or maybe I'll go down through there and do those. Okay. All righty.
And the only other 2 that's the district. It shouldn't be really hard. We know what St. Mary's and we know Marvin Memorial, so we don't even have to look for those. We know where those go. And now this is covering the district. And then after we get the district updated, then we can split up stuff out East Main, or anything, not just East Main, but all of the stuff that is state inventory. Double check that. Who do we have on, who now has access to the online inventory, the online system for Ohio inventory? Who has the access now?
I think Joe Geis and I do. I haven't actually tried it yet to make sure it works, but I think it's the 2 of us. So, and I think
Joe Geis, you know what I'm talking about? The state list that's on, called the online something or other. Yeah. Okay. So we have 2. We're allowed to have 3.
right, and I think we said we were going to put Lacey on that list too. So
Well, I don't know if that happened yet or not.
no, I need to do that. Okay. Okay, so we've got 2 done. Design guidelines. I thank you, Joe, very much for sending a list of what you thought we should consider as local standards. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I did that 4 years ago
Mhm.
when we first started talking about the federal standards, and I thought the federal standards wouldn't hold water in Shelby. And I tried to pick out the important things that I thought were germane. This morning, I ran those against When we have Medina and the guidelines,
Mhm.
and I think that this list covers a whole lot of them. Already the library was talking about a lit sign out in front. And that's one of the big things we want to consider, whether we want neon signs, blinking signs, moving signs in front of a historic place. I don't see anything about towers and antennas and dishes. But it gets attractive to hang a dish on the front of a building, and there goes your historic character.
You know, when I went by the,
Sign.
yeah, when I went by the Sheets house the other day, just to look at it, you know, because I saw that it was on the inventory, and there is one of those dish, you know, satellite dishes sticking out the front of the building. And it, yeah.
Joe
I've
Guy?
always thought this idea of painting a round-headed window, of replacing a round-headed window with another specialty round-headed sash would not hold water in Shelby. And those, I think particularly the blue building that we look at, I don't think that looks too bad with a rectangular sash put in and a blanking header put up above it. I think it's a workable solution for Shelby. So that was something I've considered an issue ever since I first heard it. And I think it's that kind of thing we got to be careful about if we're going to have a workable standard. But these were things to be considered. You know, I haven't specified any of it. Blanking windows is somewhat in the same category as a curved headed sash.
Chairman, there are some overlaps in some of these topics. There are overlaps between what we would like to see in design, historic design guidelines, and what the city already has addressed in city ordinances. So Joe Geis is a wonderful liaison for us here because he knows where we overlap with things that are already covered by city ordinance, and the city ordinance, I believe, would go ahead of our historic guidelines. But at some point, when we have a guidelines adopted by city council, then the two things are going to have to butt up against each other and be realistic in terms of what Joe does, because people come to him for building permits because they're going to change something on a building, and what we, as when it's a historic building, how it has to come to us then for the COA. But we have to make certain, as Mr. Thompson is pointing out, that we don't make our design guidelines so restrictive that individuals with buildings that they can't realistically deal with, especially windows and doors too, entrance doors and exit doors and things like that. The one that concerns me the most is when, and it's already been done, look at all the windows we looked at today that have been bricked in and blocked in. They're gone. And unless a new owner wants to restore it to its original historic appearances and so on, they're always going to be there. We're always going to have all those bricked in and blocked in places. And it's, you know, those were given permission. Joe, when did we finally have what we call, I'm thinking 90s maybe, we started saying that we had building codes per se, what you could and should do with a building, or what you should not do, or what wasn't recommended. It was probably the 90s.
Talking property maintenance, or?
Yeah, property maintenance and building codes and all that stuff. We didn't have a whole lot going on in Shelby that was like that until the 90s, I think. That's why we saw all that stuff that was on the 82 pictures. So if we go, why did they do that? Well, they were allowed to, that's why.
Cheaper.
Exactly, Mary, you're absolutely right. People will always go with what is the cheapest acceptable way. They're always going to play the money card. It's always going to be money.
And I think that's one thing too, because I've heard people say time and time again, well, you can't tell me what to do with my property. We need to flip that. We need to say, you have a historic property and it's worth, you bought it because it's a historic property. Hopefully, maybe they're just buying it because it was cheap. I don't know, but you got a historic property and don't you want to maintain it as a, historically accurate? We need to flip it that way. We're not telling you what to do. We're trying to save the what the downtown looked like.
Yeah, it's not to be a heavy-handed thing. It's to be a recommendation backed up with historic documentation to say, this is worth saving. This piece is worth preserving. This is worth restoring in some cases, or rehabilitating because of its historic nature. To say that history is worth saving. The National Trust uses that line, saving places. And I like that. We're saving places. We're not interrupting someone's ability to use a building as they see to use it. Issues with how you use it. It's how you maintain it and how you take care of your building because of its historic nature. There are some things to be considered and recommended, but we really must be careful that the design guidelines that the public does not get the impression that it's some heavy-handed, you will do kind of thing. And if you look at the ones that we have, the ones that are from the ones that we use as our basis, all of it says recommended and not recommended. Now, where in there does it say shall not? It doesn't have that in there anywhere.
I also think that, and this is kind of a big undertaking, but to some degree at least, but if we can make the argument that some things are going to be more cost effective, either in the short term in some cases or in the long run for building owners, then if we can make the case that financially it makes the most sense, that's going to be even better. And specifically, one of the things I'm thinking of, and it really will depend on the window, but historic windows really aren't, in a lot of cases, from what I've read studies wise, they're not the major loss of energy through a building. There's also ways to do another storm window or something that actually kind of helps mitigate that even further. Additionally, it depends on how hands-on the building owners are, but those can be restored somewhat easily. Now, if you bring in a professional, it can be somewhat expensive, but ultimately it's a better financial thing to do in the long run because you'll get many more years out of those than most modern windows. So if we can make those kinds of arguments for people to do, I think that's going to really help.
Yeah, and the other two words that comes up in conversation all the time are tax credits. Applying for things that are tax credits, and those especially apply to when you're using federal and state funds. And that's when you get a tax credit and you get a tax break on those renovations that you're doing, the rehabbing that you're doing. So we still don't have a 100% solid, I don't have a 100% solid grasp on tax credits. And I think I would be willing to travel safely to a location to listen to an expert on tax credits, really get my head wrapped around how that process goes, what the forms look like, how long it takes, who are the people that look at it and approve it, how is it used on your tax forms from that point on? Is it for 5 years, 10 years, you spread it out? The nitty gritty details of tax credits is something I would love to know.
I actually went to Heritage Ohio, had a series of online, like a whole week, actually, I think it was 2 weeks of talks. And they had some people from the state office for the tax credits. And I had it in my mind that we should, at some point, maybe after the first of the year, have them do the same talk for us. But I had the same feelings too, that I don't feel like I have a really good grasp on it. But once I listened to that, they take care of all of it. It's not something that we actually, I mean, we need to have a basic knowledge of the tax credits, but really what we need to do is to know where to send people, to go get more information on the state tax credits. And and that's what I got out of it. I have names now that I can say, oh, you want to look at state tax credits, go talk to this person, because they're the ones that handle it. We don't have to handle any of that. And the same with the federal. And I think they did both federal and state tax credits. So I'll contact them and see if they'll, or maybe they did record everything. Maybe I can get permission for us to, for me to share it to you.
Yeah, I missed all of that. I saw that it was happening. I even enrolled in to take that one group about tax, did that day or two about tax credits. And as it turned out, when that day rolled around, I had to make a choice time-wise. And it didn't happen. And because I figure it's all out there, it can be found somewhere.
It seems to me that if a realtor is involved in a sale of one of these buildings, the realtor himself should be informed about the tax credits to pass on to the prospective buyer.
Right. They should be informed that it's a historic building, first of all, and I don't know that they know that yet. And that's one of our biggest issues right now, is that people don't even know they have a historic structure that are, I'm sure the new coffee shop down on East Main doesn't know that they're on the historic state inventory. And, so it's, and we didn't know that because, we should have required a certificate of appropriateness, not application for them to paint the outside of the building. And I'm sure that's not historic colors, but we didn't know. And so how are they supposed to know if we don't know?
Yeah.
I have a question. So, because there are certain things that have to be disclosed with the sale of the property, I'm assuming that there's no law in place that requires the disclosure of such, that a property is on the National Register. That's crazy.
None that I have ever been able to find. That realtors and owners do not necessarily need to disclose that kind of information at the time of sale or at the time of discussing a sale. Now, to me, it's a plus to say it's a historic property, but that's me. That's not necessarily someone who would be looking at it for purchase, that they would go, well, what does that mean? Does that mean somebody's going to tell me what I have to do with my property? That's the attitude you get. And so realtors are not, I don't know for a fact. I guess it would be worth our time to have maybe 2 or 3 local realtors come to us at a meeting and tell us, what do they know about historic property? What are they trained? How do they, if they give that information, how do they relay it? What's their approach to an historic property when they are knowledgeable that it is historic? How do they approach it when that thing is for sale or when they're assisting someone who's looking to purchase it? I don't know how realtors approach it, but I can find nothing in Ohio law that says revealing or stating that something is a historic property is a law in transfer of ownership. I do know that you can put an attachment on a deed that says it is a historic property, but very few people, I don't know that there's that many deeds out there that have that on there. Somewhere Joe and I found that probably 3 years ago, that there was a waiver or something that was called that could be attached to a deed. But some people I just really think a lot of this kind of sale of property from one to another is about the condition of the building right now and what you think you're going to use it for. And then if the price is right, then you go with it, So I think we have to, I'd like to talk to realtors about what they really do know and what they feel they are compelled to do with historic properties. It's different.
I would like to know too, how how are people finding out? Because there are people from out of town that are buying property. And how do, so, you know, the realtors could be from out of town too. So how do they find out about our properties? Where, because that was one thing I talked to Jessica the other day about is, you know, I've seen other places where you can advertise, you know, put an advertisement in, you know, for these are the historic properties that are for sale in Shelby, you know, and she was going to think about it and check into it. I mean, she's, you know, got a background as a realtor, so maybe she can, and, you know, with her position with economic development. But I mean, I could see us doing things like that. The Sheets house came to mind that, you know, we were really hoping that somebody would buy it and take it back to its original splendor. It's like a 4,000, I think it was a 4,000 square foot house, and
It's huge.
had 3 stories, the maids lived up in the 3rd floor. I mean, it's just incredible story that's coming out of it. That we, you know, even into the 70s, it was still you know, a single family home. And it's known as a Sheets house, but it was Cortez Fish that built it. And then Albert Gump, with the first bicycle company, the Shelby Ideal Bicycles, bought it and lived in it at one point. So it's got a lot of really, really good history to it.
Oh, it's a gorgeous home. It's a beautiful home, but it's been chopped up now in terms of apartments. I think is it 3 or 5? I kept forgetting. It might be as many as 5 apartments in there now. It's a huge
There's quite a
home.
few. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's something that, you know, if we could, thinking long-term, you know, find a way to be able to promote, you know, here's our historic district and here are properties available. And, you know, okay. Let's see where we are. So is there anything that you would add, you know, based on the photos that we saw today, anything that you would add to Joe's list? Because I think it's a good working list to start from. I personally, I do like that we need to discuss the signage. I also think, you know, eventually we want to have a whole design guideline book, but if there are things that we need to address, and I'm going to talk about one in a minute, if there are things that we need to address right away and pass some of this piecemeal, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to do that. So, you know, things like signage, maybe we look at this list next month and start to determine, you know, what are priorities now that we really need to have some guidance in place to start with. And, you know, I think, you know, signage would definitely be one of them, and some other things. But on my own little list here, I included bay windows as part of the window discussion. Anything else?
Personally, I think the most obvious is preservation of brick surfaces, tuck
Yeah.
pointing, a stucco vinyl siding.
Yeah.
And door window removal, replacement, moving, what have you. Those are hard to undo.
Yeah. I will say too that I've been talking with Julie Roll with Regional Preservation Action Group, and she's also with Preservation Ohio, and they want to do a series of workshops just like what we've been talking about, you know, with the brick repointing and that kind of thing. And she was really interested in doing it in Shelby because we've got that nice compact area where, you know, we could be doing that. So
Many locations that could do it. Yeah.
yeah, so that might be coming in the coming year too. And, you know, anything that we can do to help. I think I would love to host, you know, people from around the state in Shelby. Wouldn't that be great?
Well, I say, particularly in the case of brick, you could come back next Monday and find something stuccoed.
Yeah.
That you didn't know about.
Yeah.
I have a question too about how we define maintenance versus change, and when we do get involved, because with things like repointing, you can make that argument that you're kind of repairing And I don't know, even if we say, okay, any cut or repair, as long as it's visible on the outside is, something we need to be involved in. But I've kind of seen firsthand, not with brick necessarily, but with sandstone foundation, how damaging the wrong mortar can be. And then we saw some examples walking with Devin and Shelby of damage to brick. So I kind of think that that's something that's just a personal, thing that I've come across recently, where I think that's actually a lot more impactful than people realize. And so we need to kind of decide, do we get involved if someone's just repointing the surface even, right?
Yeah. When I actually took pictures of the back part of the Shaw building, and I sent it to Devin to just kind of get his opinion, because some of it's stuck out, some of it's brick, some of the bricks even missing up towards the top or quite degraded. And he said that he would fix the brick, not try to stucco over it again. He would fix the brick. So I mean, we need a lot more. We need to have him actually come and look at it. He was just looking at my pictures, but there, things can be saved. I mean, it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, we're looking at the mausoleum too, and some of those blocks are just, you poke a hole in them and the sand just pours out. They're compromised, but they can be, they might have to be replaced. They might be able to be fixed. So
definitely with the Shaw building, because the building because it was a shared wall, when they pulled that building off of the back of there, that was when that destruction occurred. I remember when that building came off, and there was some concern that they couldn't pull the building away because it was a shared wall. Sometimes it's two walls next to each other, and sometimes it's one wall and the buildings share it. And that's what the case was there. That was a shared wall. And as they were taking that building down behind the Shaw building, there was concern that that whole back wall would come off of the Shaw building. And so they ended up with this concept of cutting kind of row by row as they were taking that off of there to save that back wall. Why? So that damage that you see there, where the stucco's fallen off, some of it's because the stucco pulled some of the brick facing off, but also because of the damage that was done when they removed that back building. It had to be done at the time. If I recall right, I think the building at the back amount, I think it had a fire in it. And that was one of the reasons they were wanting to do that. But several of those buildings downtown are like that. A case where it didn't occur, where the vault is and Strubles was, Strubles had its own wall. So the wall for the vault, which was the bank building, and the wall for Strubles were two separate walls butted up against each other. And that's why, but you still can see on that wall at the vault, you can see the damage that occurred when the Strubles building came down. But it had to happen. It was condemned. It had to happen. I think that's what happened at the Shaw building too. The building behind it was condemned. They had to come down. There's no choice.
I think that's where we come in as a commission too, to start collecting these names of these professionals that can come in and help provide guidance to these people when they're sitting there saying, I don't know what to do with this. I think more than anything that's something that we can help with and help provide to them. So.
When we were looking at all those pictures, and you're talking about roofs on Joe's list, I think the cornice at the top of our buildings are very, very important, and the wall that's above. I mean, that's where a lot of the architectural detail is, and I think that should be on Joe's list.
Okay, just write it down.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd put it, with the roof area, because if anybody's doing anything to those roofs, they're going to be potentially damaging the cornice and those paraparts, the walls above.
And almost every one of those rooms, I don't know. Okay, I know what the plural is. All of those, many of those in the downtown district, and Joe, guys, you can affirm this for me or tell me I'm wrong. They're flat roofs, and a flat roof creates a lot of drainage issues. I know
multiple
there was
issues.
a real issue between what we now call Connie's place and the building next to it. Those two roofs came together in such a fashion that they were collecting water all the time. They weren't draining right. Well, anytime you don't have proper drainage, I don't care what the building is, I don't care if it's brand new or if it's 150 years old. If you've got drainage issues around it, you're going to have issues with the structure of that building. As time goes by, that building's going to have issues if you have draining issues. Walls are going to move, roofs are going to sag, all kinds of things happen when drainage isn't done correctly. And in some cases, because we've had flooding issues in the district, that definitely, the demolitions that you see were all due to flood damage, almost all of them, with the exception maybe one or two. They were all due to flood damage. So water is very detrimental. Standing water, collecting water for drainage is very detrimental to any building, especially these historic buildings. Some of the basements in these buildings, we can talk about the residential layer and the second floor and the retail layer and so on. But if that building isn't standing on a solid foundation, if that basement of that building is crazy, and the Mason building comes to my mind, if that basement's bad and has gone bad, it doesn't have any ground to stand on. The building's going to shift, it's going to move. Yeah. So we need somebody that does structural things for historic buildings, how to check the structural integrity of a historic building, to say, because then you get that, then you start talking major dollars when you're talking structural issues. Now you're talking major dollars. And in our design guidelines, you can talk about those things, but I think what we really need are some experts at our fingertips who can come in and go, ooh, there's a problem with this building, or it's got a solid base under it. This is a great building for resale. Realtors should be concerned about that kind of stuff. They really should.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to mute myself now.
No, this is all good conversation. I think we need to have it. And I would add to Mary's cornices, I think those are called cornices too, all the embellishments above the windows. That's part of the historic integrity of the building, so.
But
Okay.
if you're gonna make guidelines, right there's the place to start. I say brick and cornices and improper repairs that can't be backed out.
Yeah.
And that ought to be fairly straightforward.
One thing that isn't necessarily spelled out on this initial list, but kind of crosses a couple categories, is murals and painting.
Yeah.
On brick. So for signage purposes, but also for damage to brick surfaces, that would be a consideration.
We're going to talk about that in a minute. There's a mural that's going up now that actually we can segue to that. That is a good segue. So let's keep adding to this list over the next month. And I think according to the minutes, Lacey and I were supposed to come up with a plan for starting this design guidelines process. So we'll meet together in the next month and we'll come up with a plan and start. We'll start a prioritization list, and Joe actually started a really good one for us just now. So we'll kind of start that prioritization of it, and then get everyone's feedback next month, and we'll actually start to talk, break this list down, and start talking about what we need to do for each portion of it. Thank you, Joe, very much for starting this list out, because it's a really good list for us to go by.
I have a comment on the Medina. A rough count is 16 pages. 17 pages are appendices, but most of that is boilerplate. It's not a plan for things to do in Medina, Ohio.
Yeah.
talking about the way it used to be and how it came to be and who it was named for and the Western Reserve and a whole bunch of asides that are nice stories, but somebody paid damn dear with public money to put that book together, and it's of no use whatsoever. And I don't think I would be comfortable going down that direction. And
Well,
think
You know who
I-
put it together? The same group that put together our historic preservation plan.
Medina's bigger and they had more money to spend.
So I kind of was wondering about that too, but I was reading the Ohio History Connection page that Christina sent, and it does actually recommend that you do kind of provide a lot of that history and context. I mean, I don't know that that means that you have to pay someone, to spend hours and hours and hours to do that, but I think per their recommendation, that's why they have it in there.
Well, and I will tell you that when we did the historic preservation plan, it was Tom and I that wrote the context because there's no history written. So that's something, if we're going to pay anybody, we maybe pay an intern to start doing some background research. But anyway, that's a topic I think for next week or next month. When we talk about the CLG grant that's coming up. I didn't want to tackle that this month because I think we all need some time to look at the grant and figure out if that's what we want to spend the money on. But it would be, I think that is one of those things that 100% of it would be paid for through the grant. So we might as well capitalize on that with the design guidelines while we can. But, okay, let's move on then. So the next item is discussing the mural on Black Fork Street. From what I understand, so they haven't come to us with a certificate of appropriateness because I don't think that they know that they need to. It's, from what I understand, it's the old part of, it's part of the coffee shop that wraps around the Copperfast building. Is that correct, Joe? Guys, do you know that? Yeah. So, but I don't know when that was built. Was it built before 1982? So it would be part of the historic part of the coffee shop structure.
Yeah, but would you consider that though not part of the original historic structure?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Was it built before 1982?
Oh, it was there, yeah, when I was a kid, but I don't know that it was built when the original building was built. I think it was an addition on over the years. But I don't know how much part of that has any historical, what do you consider the building? Is it the original or the additions that don't have any historical value put on them?
Well, I think it would be the same situation as Marvin Memorial Library. The original building plus the first edition was what it was included in the original, even though that first edition, I'm sure it wasn't, 50 years old or older, when that whole building at that point with that first edition was named to the National Register. And then the reason that we let them put a mural on that second edition was because that wasn't part of the original nomination and approval of that historic portion. So that's kind of my question. That's my guidance on that one was, was it there in 1982? So in that case, it would be part of that structure, right?
If it existed in 82, at the time that the facade part that we were just looking at was there, if that building had that wraparound on it then it probably should be considered historic. But again, you're right. It depends on when. It's an addition, obviously.
Mhm.
When was the addition put on? Well, if there's no way of tracking it, I don't know.
Sure there is. Call Mark Reed. I'll bet he put it on.
I'm sorry, call who?
Mark Reed.
Oh. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have a couple thoughts / questions. Firstly, there has to be a precedent for how other commissions have dealt with these kinds of situations. I wonder if that's something we can ask of the SHPO or whomever. further, I think it's kind of a question because we have two concerns, or at least two concerns that we have to consider when we're thinking about these changes. One is if it's doing damage to a historic structure, or otherwise, a detriment to it. But further, it's how it affects the historic quality of the district, if we're talking about a district. But are there other buildings that, it's negatively affecting that? So I think that's the question, because if it's not historic brick and it's not going to damage the brick, then we don't necessarily need to worry about that. But if it is detracting from the historic quality of the building or the district, then that's another consideration.
Good point.
Good points. Yeah. I think we need to have them do a certificate of appropriateness anyway, because we had the library do that, whether it is part of that historic structure or not. That was the guidance that we got from the State Historic Preservation Office, is that they still need to go through that process. So I think, Joe Geis, do you do that? Do you ask? I don't know how your responsibilities.
We'll talk to the owner.
Okay. Yeah. And then the second thing is, I do know that that I've been approached by, another property owner too, that would like to, he's got the design guidelines say basically if the brick is not painted, don't paint it. But if it has been painted, then, obviously there has to be a way to maintain it and, make it look good. And so, the vault, the side by the patio of the vault, Ben Lash has approached me and just, kind of questioned, could he put a mural there? So then we get into another whole discussion about how do we approve murals? What do we approve? Some murals can have historic, historic view, like what the library just did, or the Costanza, or the library is wanting to do. They haven't started it yet, but or could it be something different? Like a big art display. I mean, that's a big 2-story wall that he's talking about. What his thought was to paint a mirror image of the other side of the building on it, so that it looks like a complete building. So how, what kind of parameters do we use on that? And how do we, and then you think too about the mural that's going up now is on Black Fork Commons. And is that an area that maybe CIC would like to look at? And, the white part of the Copperfast that he's been painting, do they want to put a mural on there to make that a really nice entry, artsy entry into the area? I don't know. I don't know the answers to all this. And it kind of worries me, because I'll tell you my personal views on murals. They look wonderful when they're first done, but through the years, then it's, it starts to degrade, it starts to fade, and who then is responsible for maintaining it and making sure that it still looks good and that the paint's not flaking off? And that's one of my biggest concerns on it.
I agree with you 100%, Chris. I appreciate a mural, and there is a cultural kind of thing right now. People are painting on all kinds of buildings, all kinds of murals with all kinds of content. And there's a part of me that says this too shall pass. It's like it's a fad. And at some point, the fad will fade. And then what happens to all those murals that were painted to show the artsy district or whatever, or they were painted to display an attitude towards something or whatever, and then it all faded and persons have moved away, it's changed ownerships, it becomes something that's, there's a place in Cleveland, there's a fellow in Cleveland that paints over murals because they've lost their purpose, their intent, why they were there is just not important anymore. And he just paints totally over them with a solid color and they're gone. So yeah, I agree with Chris. if we're going to talk about murals, we have to make certain, if you remember with the one for the library, we said it had to be removable, that they would agree to remove it at their cost if there was an issue down the road with it. And we also, I also, another point on that one is, what's the time for a COA to expire? Is it a permanent thing? It never expires? Or after, like a mural, after so many years, if you haven't done what you said you were going to do, it no longer expires, you have to come back around again. And the rules may be different the second time around. I don't know, because I don't know that theirs is ever going to get off the ground. They've got issues, lots of issues with whether or not to do that. So I like murals to a certain point, but there is also a point where I go, if you're putting it up there to say something, when you're tired of saying it, what do you do with it? What happens to it when the people who want to just say, make a point with that mural, what happens when those people aren't around anymore? What happens?
Mail pouch comes to
I
mind.
know. Those are ads. Those are advertisements, and we can talk about that forever and ever and ever. Because we have a unique one that is sitting on a building that's an intrusion now. So I guess it doesn't matter what happens to it.
No,
But
that's not the intrusion. That's on the side of Foxden, the Foxden building.
right. Oh, you're right. It is. It's up above. It's on the side of the Foxden. Yeah, it's not an intrusion. So,
Yeah.
but that is actually, well, that's two advertisements, one over top of another. It's very unique, that particular appearance of that. Anyway, so much for that. I just,
Might
murals
need to be somewhere
disturb me.
11, and I have to end this.
Okay.
Go.
I was just going to ask you about that. Are we timed again this time? So this is good conversation. I think, first of all, I think we need to get the certificate of appropriateness application from that. And Joe, thank you. If you would take care of that, that would be good. And definitely we need to put this as, one of our considerations for our design guidelines and have much more conversation on it. Maybe we even bring in a few people that are thinking about doing murals to talk to us about it. Okay. Number 5, the local nomination for Shelby Pure Milk. They just sent me the application. They didn't send me any backup documentation. So I'm trying to work with Mindy Bigelow to get the rest of that. She did call me the other day and said that there is an article and I need to get that from her. And so I will present that to you next month. I don't think, this isn't like the certificates of appropriateness. I don't think there's a time limitation, because maybe we roll this in with the other local nominations that we need to, get the National Register and the state inventory on the local inventory. So maybe we do it as a process with that. But anyway, I'll have that for you next month. Window clings, I did get a quote from a company. I thought it was really high, and they could only do like lots of 50 and a minimum of 50. And I was kind of thinking we might want different ones for the National Register and then the state inventory. So that wasn't going to work. But I did talk to Stan Kane. He can print out whatever we want. And I asked Cody Albert, he evidently has done a lot of the design work for the CIC. And I thought maybe it would be a good idea to kind of semi-match what they're doing with, to at least kind of make it look like it's the same thing. So I'm still working on that, but I think from Stan, they were like $1.25 a piece. What we're talking about is window clings, maybe 4x6, that they can put in their front door as people walk in. So it says this is a historic property. It'll say something like that. So that's kind of what we're looking at now. And he says it's about $1.25. So I think we can get it done for like $200 to $300. So I haven't approached Brian Crum yet because I didn't know exactly how much it was going to cost. But if we can get Cody to to help us out on that. And then the low cost with Stan, I think we can keep within that timeframe. And I think that's what we had said when we were working on the budget, was probably 200 or 300. So we've got that. The outreach and education, the educational meetings, we put on hold for now until we get the design guidelines so we can roll that in. Rich History Alliance, the next grant cycle's January 1st, I believe. And they haven't awarded any more money at this point. So I think we'd still be able to, to do that. And I think what we were talking about is the brick repointing, so workshop. So I'll try and work with Julie Roll and with Rich History Alliance and see if we can't get something put together on that. Now we've got a stonemason, contact with the Devin from Preservation Ohio, so it makes it a little bit easier to be able to do a workshop like that. Mayor Shagg's not here, so I don't have any update on the engine house unless you do, Joe. You don't have an update on the engine house? Okay. The history digitization is still on hold because of not being able to get into this, get the records. 59 West Main Street, which is the blue building, the Shaw building. It's in the works to be purchased. How much? I don't know how much I can say, Joe.
That's well said.
Okay. And I think we're all going to be really excited when that happens. I'll just put it that way. So can't say more. It's almost a done deal, but so it will be very good for us. Any new business? Okay. Our next meeting will be November 20th. The city council meetings are the 19th, November 2nd, and the 16th, if I got them right, at the Justice Center or live streamed. Does anyone else have any comments? Thank you very much. This was an incredible meeting. I think we got a lot accomplished, and really excited about moving forward on all this. So I will adjourn the meeting then if there's no further business, and we'll see you all next month. Everybody stay safe.
You too.
Yeah. Thanks.